So here's my head scratcher, and I'm the head scratcher guy. Head scratchers are simply me scratching my head trying to figure out what the Calvinists mean or what the tulip and reform people are trying to say and explain. As when I listen to them speak, I just hear inconsistencies and contradictions and things that don't seem biblical and bring God's character down. Now, that's my opinion on it, so don't get mad. Somebody help me. That's why I'm making these head scratchers or posing these questions. Um, if you know Calvinist Reformed theology, they love going to John chapter 10, and Jesus speaks of being the good shepherd that lays down his life. The Calvinists might talk about limited atonement because he only dies for the elect, for the sheep. They also use, verses 14 through 16, where Jesus says, the sheep know my voice, and I know the sheep. Sorry, the voice part is not in that verse, but Jesus says, I know the sheep. Now, here's my conundrum. Here's my question for the Calvinists. When I read specifically verses 10, John 10, 14 through 16, Jesus makes this comparison between the relationship God the Father has with Jesus to the relationship Jesus has with the sheep that follow him. I guess my question to the Calvinists is, why is it seem, if all humanity comes from totally dead, totally depraved, totally wicked, totally unable to understand any spiritual truths, how could this irresistible drawing that you claim happens in John 10, this irresistible grace that changes the heart and draws men into salvation, thereby hearing the voice of Jesus, how can somebody that came from a totally dead, reprobate, wicked, haters of God, how can they come from that state but have a relationship with Jesus? Especially a relationship that Jesus compares to the one God the Father has with Jesus himself. There seems like there's a disconnect there. So that's my head scratcher. The reason you can see my screen, hopefully you can read it, is you can see this is some Calvin quotes, A.W. Pink quotes that I think relate to the total depravity, the inability for men to think. We're derided as foolish, frivolous, perverse, and insane. That's from the Institutes, Book 2. That's from John Calvin. So again, why would Jesus use this seeming relationship language, speaking of the sheep, but these sheep are being drawn for the first time? They can't have a relationship, certainly not one that is anything like the relationship that God the Father has with Jesus, which is also in verses 14, 15 of John 10. Again, to me, it makes more sense that maybe Jesus is talking about Old Testament saints that did have a relationship with God the Father. They were true worshipers, and they loved God, and they knew the scriptures, and they were waiting for the Messiah to come. And those sheep heard Jesus speak the very words that God wanted him to speak. They believed and followed. It could be them. The sheep could have been the 12. John 6, 64 through 70 talks about Jesus choosing the 12. Anybody that's smarter than me knows all the other people that were following Jesus left, and there was only 12 following. Now, here's the last thing that I think stands in the face, but some Calvinists help me. Jesus is also continuing a discourse with Pharisees that are obviously hard-hearted, and most likely the ones that put Jesus on the cross in 9 chapters. So is Jesus really saying, oh, I'm going to tell you, Pharisees who are hard-hearted and trying to stone me, all about this irresistible calling? And if the 12 disciples were saved or going to be saved, did Jesus really have to throw this teaching in? I mean, who was it for? It doesn't make sense. So that's the conundrum. I'm ready for an answer there. Head scratchers abound.